Hi guys, SkyPoint here. All of the new neutral cards are now available in-game, so in this video we're going to run through them all and I'll give my initial thoughts on them. We will be starting with the new Imperial cards, which are pretty much all Solar Auxilia, but before we look at the new cards, it's going to be important to talk about which were the old cards which are also now getting Solar Auxilia. So I'm actually going to remove my filter from the expansions list. And there we go. Now we can see everything. I'm just going to run down through and look for anything with that Solar Auxilia tab. And the ones which I'm expecting to see are going to be... here we are. Last Rifle section is now a Solar Auxilia card. Moving down further, we will see it under... let's see here. Well, the Velitaris are now Solar Auxilia. There we go. So it's them. There's going to be the Trachosan Transport as Solar Auxilia rather, and then there's one more card much further down. It's just going to be the Defense Force is now a Solar Auxilia. Alright, so with that, let's look at the new cards. Okay, so coming in at 1 energy, we get Defiant Stand. So this was in Scuffdy's review video, and he is right, the artwork on this is amazing. And this is one of the cards which gives frontline to a friendly troop. This is going to have some synergies later on. But if your deck is consisting of a lot of Solar Auxilias, this is actually really great because it can give a unit Survivor 1, which makes it significantly more difficult to kill. So for a Solar Auxilia focused deck, this card will be important because it's going to make your troops stick around for much longer, as well of course as protecting your warlord and important cards. And its energy cost of just 1 energy is very attractive. Next up is the first common card, the Forward Section. So this is a frontline troop, and although its initial stats are a bit disappointing, 2 energy for 1 attack and 3 health, that does come with frontline, which probably becomes worth it for that alone. But for every Solar Auxilia troop already on the board, it gains +1 attack. So theoretically, if you have 2 Solar Auxilia troops out there already, this turns into a 2 energy unit with 3 attack, 3 health and frontline, which is very, very good value. So again, if you're already going down the Solar Auxilia path, you'll definitely want these guys in there. Katsuhiro was similarly from my reveals video. Again, the base abilities together with the Survivor are worth it for the cost, but that Resolution ability actually carries it on further. So imagine Katsuhiro protected behind a frontline unit with maybe Survivor or something, and just constantly buffing it every time both of them make it through to the end of one of your turns. So I think Katsuhiro can help your board presence. I wouldn't call it snowballing because it's not going to build up too quickly, but Katsuhiro is just going to give your board presence a little bit of extra backbone. And so again, like, it's going to be a key card if you're going with a Solar Auxilia build. Saul's Garrison. This is a common card. It's going to give +1 only to troops with frontline or with Solar Auxilia, or +2 on attack and health to Solar Auxilia troops who have frontline. So now, I just talked about putting down Forward Section if you already have 2 Solar Auxilia troops in play. Now imagine it's a 5 energy turn, right? You have 2 Solar Auxilia troops who've made it through to the start of your turn. You drop Forward Section, and it turns into a 3 attack, 3 health unit. With your remaining 3 energy, you then play Saul's Garrison, and that means Forward Section has become a 5 attack, 5 health unit, and your other 2 Solar Auxilia units have just become buffed with +1 attack and +1 health each. Like, that is a great result for 3 energy. And so, going with the common theme over here, for a Solar Auxilia build, this is an excellent card. If you don't have Solar Auxilia, you probably don't want to do much with Saul's Garrison. Yes, it's a great follow-up to Ornatov's Barge, but that's very expensive at 9 energy for just +1 attack on each of those troops. Strategic Reserves. Now this is great. Draw 2 infantry troops from your deck and boost their stats, and if they are Solar Auxilia, lower their cost by 1. This is fantastic. Like, it's draw 2 cards is normally worth like 4 energy. Buffing them is worth more, and lowering their cost is worth more. So this is a really, really good card, and I cannot wait to get this card and a bunch more Solar Auxilia so I can put them to good use. And on top of that, they have incredible synergy with, over here, Lucretia. She already reduces the cost of her troops by 1, right? So with Strategic Reserves, first of all, Lucretia will always want this because she'll get stronger troops with her own discount, and if they're Solar Auxilia, they'll be even cheaper. Theoretically, with this, you could play a defense force in turn 8 with Lucretia, not to mention any of the other cards coming up later. Speaking of those other cards, let's look at Lord Castellan. So this card has slightly below average stats for its cost. 4 energy would expect an average of 4 attack and 4 health. Instead, you have 2 attack and 5 health. But I like this card for its energy ability. You play this guy on curve for energy. Hopefully, you're going to find that units with 5 health are a little bit tricky for the enemy to remove from the board. And when you make it through to your 5 energy turn, spend your 5 energy and you can choose a Solar Auxilia to put in play. Alright, so that's only worth it, of course, if you're grabbing someone who costs 5 or more energy, and it has to be an infantry troop. Well, you get a choice of 3. Actually, sorry, it's not worth it if it's 5 or more, because remember, generally drawing a card is worth 1 or 2 energy. So if you use this ability and you get a troop who's 4+, then you're golden. And so actually when you look at it, the Solar Auxilia have a bunch of troops like that. So if you're unlucky, you're going to get Forward Section or Katsuhiro, or Last Rifle Section. But the majority of troops cost 4 or more, because you have Velitaris Storm Section for 4 energy, another Lord Castellan for 4, Vexillarius for 4, 45th Section, Marcus Valerius, or if you're very lucky, for spending 5 energy, you'll get to put a 10 energy. Oops, let's take a look over here. You can spend 5 energy and put, where's it gone here? Defense Force into play halfway through the game. So, coming back to the expansion, Terra. There we go. Lord Castellan might allow you to put a defense force onto the board sooner than ever before. Very dangerous. Speaking of early defense forces, Vexillarius was from my reveals video. Slightly below average stats, but every turn he stays alive, he's lowering the cost of a Solar Auxilia troop. So either getting more troops onto the board, or stronger troops like defense forces, or some of their high-end vehicles or things onto the board much sooner. 45th Section. So this is actually really interesting. It's a very handy unit. The problem with many frontline units in this game is that for them to do damage, you have to attack with them, which makes it harder for them to protect you during the enemy turn. 45th Section is one of the few frontline troops who's able to do damage without attacking. So, not just for a Solar Auxilia build, for almost any build, this is one of the best frontline troops in the game. I really like it. The first legendary we have, this time the Imperial Army's legendary in this expansion, is Marcus Valerius. So, this is a legendary infantry troop, and he just gives extra backbone to your Solar Auxilia troops by giving them Survivor at the end of each of your turn. And you'll notice it does not say your other troops. So even though his stats look below average, he's going to give Survivor 1 to himself, which is effectively making him a 6 attack, 6 health unit in the turn that he hits the board, as well as buffing the rest of your troops. The rest of your Solar Auxilia troops. So again, if you have a Solar Auxilia build, this guy is excellent. If you don't have a Solar Auxilia build, I mean, you're basically paying 6 energy for an average stats for 6 energy, so it's not so good unless you're Solar Auxilia, in which case it's amazing. And then there's 2 vehicles. So this is the less dramatic one, the Malcador Infernus tank. Yeah, it's got okay stats, slightly below average, and I don't like it just because its energy ability is lackluster for what it is. Like, we can actually compare this for 7 energy, 6 attack, 7 health, and you spend 2 energy to deal 2 damage to all enemies, and that's it. Although it is a Solar Auxilia, so it has some synergy with other units like Katsuhiro, forward section. I think this one only draws infantry. That's infantry. Exalaris, yeah, it has some synergies with some of these other things, but if we were to compare it to, say, from the Mechanicum base set, we had the 7 energy Eviscerator engine. So it had less attack, but it had 2 energy to deal 2 damage to all enemies, and if anyone died, it can act again. So you can use the Eviscerator engine repeatedly. Whereas, oops, that's not what I wanted to see. I wanted to go to the Terra expansion. Yeah, with Malcador Infernus, 7 energy, but it can only act once. You get a bit more flexibility because I guess you can use it either for area damage or high damage to a single target. But I don't know, it just feels underwhelming compared to the rest of the Solar Auxilia cards, in my opinion. On the other hand, Stormhammer, super heavy assault tank. I think it's one of the first. There's a few others, like a few Baneblades in some of the Legion decks. But this is really cool. So this is a combination of relatively high damage, very high health troop with a much improved version of Purge. You deal 4 damage to a target of your choice, and if it dies, the effect gets repeated on a random enemy. It's not like Planetary Purge. Let's take a look at Planetary Purge, which was part of Chaos, actually. Really? Ugh. I'm gonna come on to the Chaos stuff in a moment. Oh my god. How do I clear that? Okay, here we go. Planetary Purge. Planetary Purge was 4 damage, and if the target dies, repeat it on another random unit, which means it can hit your own things, and it costs 5 energy. So, coming back to the Imperial deck over here for a moment. Stormhammer. It has a better ability than Planetary Purge, because it can only affect enemy units unless you choose the first target to be friendly, and on top of that, for just 5 energy more than Planetary Purge, you're getting a body on the board with a whopping 12 health and 7 attack. I think that's really powerful, and in Solar Auxilia decks, it's going to be your high-end, one of your best high-end units. Alright, so with that, we have finished covering the new Imperial cards. I think they have turned Solar Auxilia into a viable faction, because if you look at it, you'll be able to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, plus the 8 existing Solar Auxilia cards. So 15 plus 8, 23 troops from Solar Auxilia are now in the game. So that is actually, well, 23 troop cards from Solar Auxilia are now in the game. So that makes Solar Auxilia a viable standalone faction, basically, right? You don't necessarily have to use them to supplement another faction. You can build Solar Auxilia decks, viable Solar Auxilia decks, I believe. And they have amazing synergy with themselves, of course. Next up are the 4 new Mechanicum cards. So you can see here they're generally cheap cards. I think the Mechanicum got a fair bit of love in some of the previous expansions. But let's take a look here. So we've got Tech Savant. So this is interesting. It lets you choose a vehicle of your choice from the Mechanicum. and put it in your hands, you'll get an option of 3 vehicles. And if we sort of just try and look, like, it's a little bit hard to filter, but the Mechanicum now have a lot of vehicles running from the cheapest through to the very expensive ones. The problem with that card is there's so many vehicles that if you were to play it in early game, you may not get a choice of 3 which are viable anytime soon. So that's just a little watch out. I'm not sure how useful this would be. Also, normally when you put vehicles in your deck, you're trying to include vehicles with synergy with the way you plan to build. With the Mechanicum having so many vehicles, this might end up being a little bit chaotic. I don't feel too good about Tech 7. On the other hand, Combat Automata is a very useful low-end troop. Average stats with a very handy backlash ability for Mechanicum. And so I think this will be very popular. I mean, already people who play Kelbor Hal love spamming Mechadendrites like crazy, and Combat Server Automata will just be right up that alley. So I think it's going to be popular there. Now this is interesting. It's a new vehicle. Average stats, so it's sort of worth it for its stats alone. Coming in at 3 energy, it's easy to keep alive. But it's got one of the coolest abilities I've seen here. Gains +1 an energy, attack and health for 2 energy and can act again. This has a lot of synergy with Mechanicum stuff. Because, first of all, obviously, Mechanicum get access to, where's it gone over here? Drilling site, which is going to refill your energy. But on top of that, there's also, of course, Anakara Scoria, who refills 2 energy for free. So say for someone like Scoria, Ursurak starts its second turn, like you play it on curve. With 4 health, it hopefully survives until your next turn. And then you've got 4 energy to spend. You can use its ability twice to turn it into a 4 attack, 6 health unit. Use Scoria's ability or Drilling Site, or the combination of the two, to turn it into turn it into 5 attack. 5 attack and 7 health. And as I said, if you use Scoria and the Drilling Site, by the end of your 4 energy turn, it's turned into a 6 attack and 8 health unit, which can be extremely powerful that early in the game. Even in late game, like if you get this thing on the board and it somehow survives till your turn, for 10 energy you can buff it with +5 attack, +5 health. So turning it into a 7 attack and 9 health unit. Not the most efficient way to use it, but it still gives you flexibility when you have excess energy left at the end of your turn. Lastly, Kelbor Hal's best friend. So before I go into that, I just want to show you one more time what Kelbor Hal's ability is. Create a Mechadendrite for free. Alright, so with that, look at this guy. Zagreus Kane gains +1 attack and health when targeted with a Mechadendrite. So right now, Mechanicum players who build up Mechadendrites and play them onto a unit have tended to have to rely on the Merit's Mercs card. So, sorry, let's take a look here. Merit's Mercs is expensive. It's 6 energy, comes with 4 attack and 5 health, and when you play a card, it gains +1 attack, +1 health. And so Kelbor Hal players, and many other Mechanicum players, will put a pair of Merit's Mercs into their deck and hope they come up by the time they have lots and lots of Mechadendrites. Well, oops, I should really just use the expansion menu here, right? Zagreus Kane has made that playstyle even more viable because, yes, it's cheaper than Merit's Mercs and its health is slightly lower, but it's much cheaper than Merit's Mercs. In fact, it's 2 energy cheaper, and now it doubles the number of troops Mechanicum players can have in their deck to spam Mechadendrites onto. Instead of 2 cards, they can go up to 4 cards, 2 Merit's Mercs and 2 Zagreus Kanes. So this will be very popular in that playstyle. It's a good card. And of course, with the extra synergy from Combat Automata, it works very well with Zacharias Kane. So that brings us on to Chaos. Alright, so technically not one of the neutrals just released now. It came out last week, but it is part of this expansion. I haven't talked too much about him. Is Argocol Goreborn. So far, using the existing Chaos cards, I felt he's a little bit underwhelming. Chaos really suffers from the lack of hard removal. So when you have high-end units with, high health units with Survivor and or very high health and frontline, Argocol Goreborn tends to come to a crashing halt. Or when you're facing warlords like Angron, who you have to attack, but who often don't have troops on the board, Goreborn tends to have trouble with that. So I'm still need time to tweak around with playing him. I've been having too much fun with Malcador to focus on making a proper Argocol Goreborn deck, but he's alright. I think maybe he's slightly better than Captured Mandragorax if you're up against the right enemy, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot better warlords in the game than Goreborn right now, I believe. Okay, Fateful Clash. This is amazing. There's a couple of warlords who have trouble with difficult frontline troops. Angron is an example, Karn is another example of that, and then also there's Liman Russ and there's Daniel Garrow. Warlords who like to attack, and you can throw up frontline units to either make it difficult or frankly punish them for that. Fateful Clash can be used to stop your enemy saving themselves towards the end of a game through front line, because once you've got your finisher moves lined up, you can throw out Fateful Clash, giving the enemy front line and allowing all of your units on the board to hit the enemy warlord. So for any of those 4 warlords who I just described, I think Fateful Clash will become very important. Priests of Old Faith. This is going to really support demon-focused builds. Like, there's already various cards in the game which do that, but this is a very interesting cultist because it lowers the cost of demons, and for those warlords who have to pay maintenance, this actually kind of helps you bypass the maintenance penalty, as long as you're putting just more demons onto the board in a given turn, because yeah, it makes your demons cheaper, which helps you to play them if you have maintenance penalty going on. So for this alone, without even talking about the next card, these guys would be worth it. Decent stats, Duplicitous protects them from at least one of the most dangerous units on the board, the enemy warlord, and a handy little ability if you're going through the demonic path. So I like them. I just talked about the next card though, and wow, look at this thing, Draconian. So it has above average stats for its cost. It has, for a demon, pretty decent maintenance. And by the way, above average stats for cost is a pretty common theme with demons, but this one has very low maintenance for what it does. And it has an incredible backlash ability. As long as you have at least one non-demon troop on the board, whenever Draconian dies, that non-demon will get killed and Draconian comes right back. So if you've got your Priests of the Old Faith, for example, lowering your cost for demons. So for 4 energy, so early game, you can play such a strong unit. And when it dies, if the Priests Duplicitous manage to keep them alive, well, Draconian will just come back for one more turn. This card makes those cheap cultist builds really worth it. So I am looking forward to seeing the devastation Draconian will have on the battlefield. Speaking of devastation, Castrak is a really interesting one. Cultists are all well and good, but they are weak as hell. But with Castrak, if you put it onto the board, and by the way, it costs 5 energy, but if you do have Priests of the Old Faith, Castrak will only cost 4 energy. Whenever another troop dies, you give +1 attack to all your troops. So you can throw your cultist into an enemy troop, 2 troops die, all your remaining troops get +2 attack. And then, yeah, it keeps going from there. And you can use this to basically cascade through the enemy board until, frankly, hopefully all the enemies are dead. And Khazrak himself is on the board and super buffed. Because again, it doesn't say all other troops. Those that +1 attack will be applying to him as well. So potentially, let's say if you put him on the board when you've got 3 cultists out there, you attack with each cultist kills another enemy troop, or each cultist, if each cultist kills another enemy troop, Khazrak will be buffed with +6, so it'll be a 10 attack, 6 health unit on the board at the end of your 5 energy turn, which can be devastating. I like it. The other thing is just what actually does is right now under the word bearers, there was a card which was kind of garbage. Let's take a look right now. It was Secret Devotion, 5 energy, and for each enemy put in play a random 2-cost cultist. Well, if you played Secret Devotion and your stupid weak cultists survive until the end of the turn, or frankly you drop Secret Devotion, maybe you've got something with front line or whatever, and then you follow it up with... Where's it gone back here? You follow it up with Khazrak, then potentially all those weak cultists you got will become buffed and become very dangerous. So... and Khazrak, of course, it doesn't just work on cultists. If you have any faction which is based on having lots and lots of troops on the board, frankly, even Solar Auxilia, this will benefit those as well. So I think this will end up becoming a surprisingly popular troop. And of course the other possibility is with a Nurgle poisoning build, although it might be a little bit harder to get the best value out of it with this. You'd have to play a really specific combo to try to put this on the board and yet be able to poison enough troops and protect your own troops from dying from that poison. Alright, let's keep going on over here. We have next Insurgent Leader. Okay, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the artwork on this look like Santa Claus has fallen to chaos? Every time I look at this, I'm just thinking, oh no, Saint Nick, what happened to you? Anyway, Insurgent Leader, this is actually pretty cool. Whenever a friendly cultist dies, put in place a cultist brute. Let's quickly take a look at cultist brutes again. So I think cultist brutes were 2 energy. Oops. 1 energy. 3 energy. So when a friendly cultist attacks, gain +1. That is important to remember because again, as we look at the combo over here, whoops. Insurgent Leader hits the board when you have 3 cultists for 3 other cultists on the board. For example, Cultist 1 attacks and you get a Cultist Brute. Cultist 2 attacks and you get another and dies and you get another Cultist Brute, and the previous Cultist Brute gets buffed with +1 attack. And then the third cultist attacks and dies and you get a third Cultist Brute, and the first one now is up to +2 attack and health, and the second one is up to +1 attack and health. So I think this one is good synergy with the idea of having lots and lots of cheap cultists out there. Next, Khorne's Favor, and this is one of the 2 cards which is going to make Goreborn much more viable. So Khorne's Favor is a legendary, so you can only have 1 of these, but it gives your warlord +4 attack until your next turn. So first of all, this allows Khorne to do 10 points of damage in a single turn. So Khorne's Favor is now Khorne's finishing move, so watch out for that. Secondly, it's going to really help our Goreborn. So +1, he'll be able to start like killing much more stronger troops, including big frontline troops, and basically steamroller through the enemy front line and onto the warlord from there. And of course, Khorne's Favor makes Angron far more devastating for his finishing moves. When Angron reaches the point where he's going to play his transformation and attack twice, Let's say Angron has played 2 axes by that point, so his base attack is already 5. He then plays this card, and he goes up to 9 attack. And Angron hits you, goes down to 1 health, and then he triggers his demon form. So let me just check one thing about Angron's demonic transformation. World Eaters, all cards. Yeah, he has an extra +2 attack compared to, well, +1 attack compared to base Angron. So, if we run through the maths over there, oops. A final Angron turn, right? So, Angron is on 3 attack +2 axis, so 5 attack +4, 9. Then turns into demon form, so demon form has a base 4 attack, +2 axis is 6, plus this is 10. So 19 damage from Angron in his end move from just turning into a demon with 2 axes and Khorne's Favor before. So this can become devastating for Angron. It's also going to be popular with Liman Russ, for example. Plays Khorne's Favor as part of a finishing combo with a bunch of attacks. And even Garrow can become devastating with this as well. Khorne's Favor plus 4 cheap troops for in the 4 1-cost troops in the final move would allow Garrow to do 6 times 4, 24 points of damage in 1 turn, potentially. So yeah, lots of warlords will be able to benefit from this. It's going to be a game changer. But that's not all. We have Ruinous Claim, which is a very powerful tactic. Change the health of all troops in play to 1. So this has a couple of things it will combo very nicely with. So first of all is Goreborn. Maybe you want to just chew through the entire enemy line of troops very quickly. But it'll go very well with any faction who has area damage. So for example, for 10 energy, the Sisters, where have they gone over here? Loyalist, Sisters. For 10 energy, they can play that together with Prosecutor Mistress and wipe out an enemy board as long as units don't have Survivor. Or for 8 energy, that becomes a board clear move for the Sons of Horus. I know a lot of people have been wanting the Sons of Horus to get a bit more love, and there you go. And who else can do 1 damage to everyone? Let's take a look here. If we look at 1 damage cards. My god. Okay. So I'm looking for area 1 damage. So, oh yeah, Keth Bikes. Absolutely. 9 energy move to do a board clear with Keth Bikes. Iron Warriors counter attack plus that. So 8 energy board clear. That works. 10 energy move, 9 energy move, use Deceive Cultist and that card to board clear for Alpha Legion. Night Lords, nope, that won't work. Thousand Suns won't work easily. I mean, with Thousand Suns, you could use that card together with the what's it gone there? Together with Astral Warfare, so that's possible. Wordbearer. Oh, Argyle Tau could use it to kill 3 units, so theoretically that could go down, and that'll of course help to trigger his transformation. And Ruinstorm, yes, Ruinstorm can use that with Mirror of Hatred or Khorne Blood Crushers or the Molten Blood mutation as well. So I think for Ruinstorm, it starts to open up more options for area builds. But that's not all. Let's take a look over here. So Salamanders, Cassian Vaughn, and Harmonican Support Squad all do 1 damage. Cassian spends 2 energy, so using that card and Cassian is a 9 energy move. With Harmonican Support, it's 8 energy. Raven Guard for 9 energy with Curse of the Raven and doing damage to everyone. Let's see here. Anyone else with 1 damage? 10 energy for Blood Angels with a Prophecy Received. Prosecutor Mistress I already covered. Potentially, if you already have Revuel Arvida in play, using that tactic will then wipe out the entire enemy board, because Arvida does 1 damage to all enemies when you play a tactic, and that new card is, of course, a tactic. So if you have Revuel Arvida in play, it'll be a combo which wipes the enemy board out. And then as we get to Unaligned, surprisingly, not really these guys. Defenders of Caliban, not really. Oh my god. Yes, and for Knights, with the Atropos Last Cutter, that turns into a board wipe as well. So yeah, essentially, that is an excellent card with lots, and Ruinous Claim is an excellent card with lots and lots of potential combos with many factions and many cards to turn weak abilities into powerful endgame board clears. So I think Ruinous Claim is going to see a lot of use. Alright, so that's a run through the new cards. Just to recap, so not much change for Mechanicum. A couple of extremely powerful cards coming out of Chaos. I personally still don't believe it's quite enough to make Cultist a viable faction playstyle in its own yet. I would have liked to see more card draw or discounting or card discounting abilities to make the Cultists work better, but they're getting there. But the real star of this expansion is the Solar Auxilia, who are basically a viable standalone faction now, with enough unit cards to build around them, enough tactic cards to buff that build, as well as a couple strong vehicles for extra backbone. The one thing which I would have really loved to see, and I hope the devs include this soon, is a dedicated Solar Auxilia warlord with some kind of synergy with them, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. Alright, so have you guys managed to unlock any of these cards yet? If you have, let me know what you think, and if not, well, I look forward to meeting you on the battlefield in the new event. Oh, speaking of the new event, I wanted to talk through the rewards over here. This is one of the rare rewards where the 2 cards are of different rarities. So the Imperial card is very powerful. Of course, Karn is going to benefit a lot from it, as will Liman Russ, as will actually the new Chaos Warlord Gorborn. It was very, very good for him. I really personally hope people don't unlock this, but it's a vain hope, because it's going to make some of those aggressive warlords even stronger and very, very tough to beat. Storm the Gate, on the other hand, is another very handy card, especially for it's one of the things which would actually make a Cultist build viable, because it's going to draw cards for you every time the enemy warlord takes damage, and there's lots and lots of different ways you can actually capitalize on this. So there's a fair number of tactics which deal damage repeatedly to the enemy warlord. Raven Guard, of course, have the one we know best, which deals 1 point of damage 3 times. But even the Chaos tactic Rain of Fire costs 5 energy and deals damage twice. Storm the Gates could work well with that. And if you have lots of troops on the board, Storm the Gates, of course, will help you to draw from that. So, I would personally like to see that. But, of course, we will not be getting Storm the Gates, because everyone wants to try out Solar Auxilia cards. And those are going to be on the loyalist side, so mostly, I believe, in the deck building. So yeah, I think that's what we're probably going to be seeing a lot more of in this event. Alright, so thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you on the battlefields as the storm breaks. Bye for now, everyone.